Okay, gentlemen, we're going to take a look at using Google Sheets to map or model something as an exponential function. So to start, taking a look at the equation we had on our first test, a of t equals p, principal or starting amount, times 1 plus or minus the rate divided by how often it's compounded to the n, how often it's compounded, times t in years. So we had seen on the test a plus because it was interest. How much more money will I have after a certain amount of years? You could do one that's minus, because that's a loan. That would be how much I would be taking off the total amount I borrowed, and then till I get down to zero, and then I paid off my loan. And the interest is how much the bank takes in based on how long you have the loan out for whatever amount you took out. So let's take a look on how to model this. So this is how I like to start it. I start in column C, not in A. And over here, I'm going to put principal or the starting amount. Okay. I'm going to tap column C, the top part, and use the gray little slider, gray slider, and just slide it over. So I make it a little bit wider. So that was me tapping the top column C. Next, I'm going to go into column D. I'm going to type in interest rate. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. Tap D, slide it over. Okay. And then in column E, I'm going to write compound. And that's that n variable in our formula. Principal, starting amount, interest rate, that's my R, n is compound. Now this is a loan. The compound is how many payments I have to make. So when I make a payment, if I make one a month, that would be 12 payments for the year. If I make it twice a year, that would be 2 payments for the year. So compounding is more like the vocabulary for interest. How many payments will I have to make? So if it's a car loan, probably once a month. If it's a house loan, probably once a month. So those are both 12. Something like car insurance is usually about twice a year. So that would be twice a month. If I'm investing in stock, a lot of times it's quarterly, so about every 3 months, so that'd be a 4. Or maybe it's 3 times a year, so that would be, about, every 4 months, and that would be divided by 3. So, for stocks, it's usually a smaller number. Usually a loan, it's a larger number, usually 12, including student loans. I'm pretty sure student loans are about 12 months, maybe 10 if they don't count the summer, but probably 12. Okay, I'm going to pick arbitrary numbers just to make this easy, but this is what your project would be. You would pick what you want it to be. So let's say I'm trying to do my project on taking out a loan for a car. I would look up a car that I'm interested in, find the estimated price of that car, and type it in here if I'm doing a loan. I'm going to type in 10,000 just as an arbitrary number. Interest rate, so if I were doing my car example, I would say, okay, the interest rate is, let's just say 25%, so I'm going to say 0.25. It's probably going to be lower than that, like 0.025 or something like that. And then compound, I'm just going to pick an arbitrary number, 4. If you're doing a car, it's probably more than $10,000 for a car. The interest rate is probably a little bit lower, and it's compounded probably 12 times. So this would be the part of the project that you determine, these 3. Okay, and you would look something up, pick something you like, and make sure those 3 numbers are accurate. Then I'm going to go to column A. I like to skip row 3, just for a little bit of space. And in column A, I'm going to write years. That's our variable. That's our x value in our equation. My formula was A of t. T was the years. There's my x value. The A was the amount. That was my y value. twice. Okay. So a couple things about sheets. I'm going to start to type in the number 1, enter. The number 2, enter. Number 3, enter. Sheets does a lot for you as long as you know how to use it. So if I tap the 3 box and I grab the little blue circle in the corner and I drag down, tap in the center of the blue area, and I hit everyone's favorite button, autofill, it will fill a 3 into every box. How nice. But I don't want it to be every year is year 3. I want it to be year 3, then year 4, then year 5, then year 6. So if I drag two boxes, 2 and 3, Google Sheets will see the pattern and say, okay, 2, 3, I assume you go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I autofill, here we go. We go down to number 10. So nice, very nice that Google Sheets does that for us. And that was me sliding down with the blue in the corner and then hitting autofill. Okay, so far so good. If you were doing alone, you would want this to go down until you get $0. If you're doing an interest rate, you would determine how far you want it to go down. So if I'm investing $10,000 into a stock with a 25% interest rate, compounded 4 times a year, and I'm currently 15 years old, and I say, well, I want to know how much money I'll have after 30 years. This is what it would look like. Maybe you want to know how much money you'd have after you retire, so you'd go down till it says something like 65. Right, so you determine how far down you want it to go. Now this is the equation we have to write. I'm going to write equals. Equals is telling Sheets I would like to start having Sheets compute for me. As opposed to typing in all the values by hand, I want Sheets to do the work for me. I'm going to write in $, so that's above the 4, shift 4, there's my $, C, $2. And that highlights that box C2, that cell C2, my 10,000. The reason I have the $signs in there is that is locking cell C2. So when I drag down to autofill, if I were to start dragging down, it would slide down with me. It would say, okay, now you want probably cell C3, and then you probably want cell C4, C5, C6, but I don't want that. I want always when I drag down, you only use that number. This cell doesn't slide down as I drag down the blue. I only want to talk about the green box 10,000, so I $sign it to lock it in. Okay, Sheets doesn't understand parentheses as being multiplied, so you have to do the multiply symbol, which is right above the 8. Okay, now I'm going to start my parentheses for my formula. It was 1 plus or minus. I'm doing a loan per se, so I'm going to do minus because I will pay into the loan and it'll drop down the total price from 10,000 to 8,000 to 6,000. So I'm doing minus. Now my formula is my rate over my compound number. So again, I want my $signs to lock in. I don't want to, when I drag down my formula, I start going down to row 3 and 4 and 5, and I want to stay there. So I'm going to do $D, $2. There's my red box for D, divided by $E, $2. There's my pinkish box, my cell, for the compound. So right now we have 1 minus D2 locked in. That's my rate. Divided by N, the compound number, E2 locked in. Close my parentheses. My formula looks pretty good so far. Principal times 1 minus R over N to the exponent of, there's my caret, my little up arrow, which is above the 6 on the keyboard, so it's shift 6. Again, I do my parentheses, and I got to go back to my N number, my compoundness. Okay, and I multiply that by it was T, my years. So I'm going to tap my cell A5, my number 1. I am not putting dollar signs there because I'd like to drag down, and I want that to change. Close my parentheses, and I hit enter. You should get 7,724. If not, if it says something like error, just check the formula, and it should be what this says. Okay, now next you can do one of two things. I like doing it this way. It kind of shows what's happening. For year 2, I don't want to start paying based on the 10,000 anymore. I have paid some off. I'm down to 7,700. So now I want to hit equals, and I don't want to use the 10,000 anymore. I want to start to chip away from that 7,000 number. So I'm going to hit equals, tap my box B5 without the lock, without the dollar symbols. Because now that's saying this will change as I go down to cell number B7, year 3. I'm going to use the cell above. When I go down to year 4, I'm going to use the cell above. So that I want to change. And now I type the same formula I had above. 1 minus $D2 locked in my interest rate. I don't want to slide down and that goes away. I want to always pull that number. $E2 locked in. I always want to pull that number to the power of $E2 again. Now I don't need the times T because this is doing that for me by changing the number in front to being from the 10,000 to the B5 to the $7,000. It is already taking into account I'm on year 2. So it's doing it for me. I hit enter, and now I'm down to 5,967. If I tap this box, which has a different formula than this box, right, I want this formula dragged down. So as I pull down, whoops, I apologize for that, don't do that. As I drag down from this box all the way down, it's going to always use the cell above to calculate the next cell. So I drag down, tap in autofill, and there's me going down to $200 after 15 years. Okay, now if you don't have it doing that, just make sure your first term, like for me it's B18, right, which is the cell directly above. There's no dollar sign symbols, that would lock it in. Now I want to do this loan down to 0, so I'm going to go down to, let's see, I'll just go down to here. I just went down a random amount. I'm down to 53. I want this formula dragged down to 53. Oh, I'm down to about a penny. So I'll go down a little bit more. 59. Hopefully that's it. 0.00. Okay, I'm close enough. Okay. But these aren't actual dollar amounts. This is a pretty ridiculous number, 0.00242. That's not actual money. So I'm going to tap the B column as a whole. In the top right, there's the A symbol. In the cell area, under number, I would like this to all be currency. You could make it financial, the parentheses or whatever. I don't like the accounting one. It has the number sign too, but it's kind of pulled off. I like regular currency. And now it takes everything and makes it into an actual dollar amount with 2 decimal places. And it puts the dollar sign symbol there without you having to type it, because if you type it, you mess up the formula. So that was all the way down, and I'm at $0. I'm actually at $0 after 57 years. It rounds, so I'm just going to delete these. Now, this is not totally accurate. When you do this for your project, your interest rate is not going to be 25%. It's probably going to be 0.025. So it's not totally accurate, because if you look at these numbers, would I pay a penny for 5 straight years? No, I would not. So it's not really actually totally accurate, but it's a pretty good representation of a decrease marginally each year. So when you do this, you may go down like 200 cells just to get it down to 0. That's okay, right? That's fine. Okay, so I'm down to 57. Your last part of your project is highlight your year and amount, starting at row 4, all the way down till I get down to 0. Whoops, all the way down till I get down to 0. I'm going to hit the plus sign. I'm going to insert a chart. I would like it to be a line chart. So you may have something like this that comes up. I want a line chart. And okay, my legend's on my right. That just tells me if I'm X and Y's. Okay, title, I could change the title. Chart title, right, that's what it's called. I'm just gonna call it passes car loan. Update the title, there we go, there's my title, looks nice. And then I hit done, and now I'm just gonna drag this right there so I can see everything. And here's my chart. It's an exponential, it's pretty good. It maps it pretty well, and then it has all my values on my left. And if you did it right, if I change this to now, I don't want 10,000, let me make this 100,000, so I add a 0 and I hit enter, it changes everything slightly without me having to redo everything. If it's compounded 7 times, didn't change too much, but maybe my interest rate will. Maybe my interest rate is actually gonna be pretty high, like 75%. It's a very steep curve now. Maybe it's much less, something like 0.2%, or no, 0.1, we'll do even a little 0.1. You can see it's much wider. So just a pretty good use of taking an exponential and mapping it into something. You would then take this worksheet, export it, send a copy, send a PDF over to probably Notability. Then you would make a Google Doc, and in the Google Doc, you'll type basically your explanation to me about what you did. Doesn't have to be super long, but it would just say, like, I'm taking out a car loan for $100,000 for a brand new truck. And my interest rate, I looked it up. The average interest rate is 0.625%. It's compounded. I'm going to make 12 payments over the course of the years, over the year, so once a month. And then, I decided I wanted this car, and this is what the curve looks like. It's decreasing, and it would take me about 50 years to pay it off. Okay, so there would be your Google Doc, some sort of a description. For your Google Slide, it's the presentation form of it, so it's a much more reduced version. So it would essentially have your 3 important numbers, a general idea of what you're doing. So I'm doing a car, or I'm doing a student loan, or I'm doing a stock, and then maybe you insert this picture, and you just kind of give me the key points, like how long it took me to pay it off, and what was my like how did I get these, and then just the picture, I guess. So that would be it. So it's much shorter. It's like 3 or 5 slides, so it's not very long. The Google Doc is essentially you describing to me what you did. The sheet is your rough draft. You'd meet like all the work you did to get there, and the slides is just a rough outline of what it is, like the key points, the 3 important numbers, the picture, and then like the story behind what you graphed and modeled. Okay, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me, but I'll see you next week and we can talk about it more in class to finalize everyone's details. Good luck.